Are you frustrated that your Zoom recordings look like this? Would you instead like your Zoom recordings to look, but more importantly, sound like this? In this video, I'm going to show you how to get the best quality Zoom recordings for your meetings and presentations using the ATEM Mini Extreme. Hi, I'm Aaron Parecki. Since March 2020, I've had to move all of my live training sessions online, as I'm sure is the case with a lot of you as well. I'm also often asked to record these sessions so that people can watch them later. If you've ever used the built-in cloud recording feature in Zoom, I am sure you've been less than impressed at the quality of the end result. The cloud recording feature is convenient, but the quality at the end is not anything I would upload to YouTube. It's really only acceptable for internal meetings, in my opinion. So before I show you how to record your meetings in the best quality, I first want to explain some of the limits of the tools we're working with. The ATEM Mini and ATEM Mini Extreme are amazing tools, and they let you do a lot of things to really improve the quality of your Zoom meetings. I'm not going to get into all of that in this video, but my channel on YouTube is full of tips and tricks, and I do weekly live streams answering questions and sharing tips. But here's the problem with using the ATEM Mini and Zoom, or any other meeting software. The ATEM Mini really only outputs one video feed into Zoom. Now, if you're just sharing a couple of video cameras into Zoom, this is great. You can get a main shot, a top-down view, a side angle, share all those cameras into Zoom. Zoom sees it as one camera, and you can switch angles on the device itself. But the problem is when you want to go and share your slides into Zoom as well as record them. Now, you can plug in your computer into the HDMI port of the ATEM Mini, and that will let you mirror your computer screen into the ATEM so that it can be recorded. And with the ATEM Mini Extreme, you can even use the SuperSource feature to get this side-by-side view of your camera with the slides next to it. This, in my opinion, is the biggest reason to get the ATEM Mini Extreme over the original ATEM Mini series. But the problem is, if you bring this view into Zoom, Zoom is not treating it as a screen share. So even though you are sharing your slides in your camera in Zoom, Zoom is going to compress it like they compress video, and small text or other details may not be visible for viewers of your meeting. So the best way to share your screen in Zoom is to actually use Zoom's built-in screen sharing feature. That way, Zoom is able to compress the video appropriately and make sure that small text and details are still visible. But now the problem is, again, in the ATEM Mini. So if you set the ATEM Mini to the SuperSource layout, then what people see in the Zoom meeting is your video looks like a tiny version of the slides and a tiny version of your face. What you actually wanted to do was to set your main camera angle to your full camera so that in Zoom people see your face. So if you've got it set up like this, and you're using the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO or the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, if you're recording all the camera feeds, you would be recording a full-res version of your camera, a full-res version of your slides. Zoom sees the correct thing, and you could, in post, combine the two together in a video editing program and get the side-by-side layout. But I'm lazy, and I don't want to have to do that much video editing of a 3-hour session later. I would rather have the recording look like this in the end without me having to do any extra work after the meeting ends. So with that context out of the way, let's go through step by step, and I'll show you how to set this all up. To get the best quality recording and the best experience in Zoom, you'll need the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. You'll also need a portable hard drive in order to record your meeting onto. I use the Samsung T7 or the SanDisk SSD Extreme. Now, this will also work with software other than Zoom. I just like picking on Zoom because I use it all the time and also because the recordings are so bad. So first I'm going to talk about how to connect everything. There are quite a few pieces involved here, so it's a little bit complicated. I'll walk you through step by step, and I'll also share some diagrams of how these are connected. So first, let's connect a monitor to the ATEM Mini Extreme on the HDMI out 1. That's going to be what we use for multi-view so that we can see everything that's going on, see all the camera angles, and monitor the audio. I'm using this 27-inch Dell monitor as the multi-view, but it doesn't really matter what monitor you're using for this. Next, let's connect the video sources. Start by connecting your camera to the ATEM Mini Extreme input 1. You can see I've got it in camera 1 on the multi-view right there. Next, you'll want to connect your computer to the ATEM using HDMI. So if your computer doesn't already have an HDMI port, you may need to use a dongle like the Apple Thunderbolt to HDMI dongle. I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. And when I do, my computer will see the ATEM as a second monitor. So to your computer, the ATEM looks like an external display. And you can in fact see my computer monitor is now showing up on the ATEM as well in input 2. Now, if you don't care about having dual monitor support in your presentation, you can leave your computer in mirroring mode where the same thing on your computer screen is the same thing that appears in the ATEM. But I usually like to go into dual monitor mode so that I can use Keynote's presentation mode and see the presenter's notes and the next slide on my laptop monitor, sending only the slides into the ATEM. So if you uncheck the mirror displays option, and then when you're in Keynote, you'll see your presenter's notes on the laptop and the slides will be in the ATEM. But you might now notice that it's a little bit hard to see my second computer monitor over in that multi-view since it is kind of small. It's probably fine in Keynote because I can see the main slide on my laptop screen anyway, and that's really just a copy. But if I were doing anything like live coding or trying to show you something in a browser, that would be way too small. But that is where these video out buttons on the ATEM come in handy. This last row of buttons selects what goes out of the HDMI 1 port. So right now it's set to multi-view, which is why you're seeing the multi-view on the screen. But if I press the number 2, then it switches to my computer screen. And now it's the same as if I had plugged my computer into a second monitor, except I can also now record that screen. So now we've got the camera plugged into the ATEM as well as the computer, and we could use the recording feature in the ATEM to record both of those together. Go ahead and make sure you've pressed 1 on the ATEM Extreme, as well as enable the audio for that camera. Now we're ready to set up Zoom. So for this, we'll need a USB-C cable to connect the laptop to the ATEM. Go ahead and connect those, and then open up Zoom or your meeting software. You should now see the Blackmagic camera showing up under your camera choices in Zoom. Go ahead and select the Blackmagic camera and also select the Blackmagic microphone. Let's try this out by starting a new meeting in Zoom and setting up the Zoom meeting the way we want it. So here's my main Zoom window, and then I can share desktop 2, which is where my slides will appear. So this is what you would expect to see in Zoom. I've got my presenter view on the laptop, I've got the slides on a monitor, and I can see that I'm in the Zoom meeting. Great, but how do we now record these together? For this, we're going to use the SuperSource feature in the ATEM Mini Extreme. So under Palettes, go to SuperSource, go ahead and enable box 1, set box 1 to your camera. We'll deal with position in a minute. In box 2, make sure that's enabled and set that to your computer. And then make sure boxes 3 and 4 are not enabled. This is where you'll go ahead and set up the SuperSource layout however you want it to look. I personally like having the picture of myself off to the left and then cropped a little bit. So I'll go ahead and add more crop to the left and to the right. That looks about right. I'll scoot it over a little bit more. And then I'll take box 2, which has my slides, and scoot that over to the right. You can change the size here. You can make it smaller or larger, depending on what you want. And actually, if you want to crop out the little green border that Zoom adds, you can also crop this. Looks like 0.1 is enough to get rid of that border. So we'll go ahead and set that to all of them. Okay, so this is looking better. It's starting to look like something. Let's go ahead and put some background art in the back of the SuperSource layout. You can see I've got my RGB background loaded in, and it's set to Media Player 1. Over in the Art tab, I can make sure that Media 1 is chosen here and place it in the background. And now if you look at the SuperSource, you can see that it's got my background art underneath the video and slides. Okay, so this is progress, but here's the problem. If I were to switch to the SuperSource layout in the ATEM, then Zoom also sees the SuperSource layout. And that's not what we want, because we want my face in the entire Zoom window. We don't want the tiny little SuperSource. So I need to keep the ATEM set to 1, but the ATEM won't record the SuperSource by default. The ATEM Mini ISO will only record the 8 HDMI inputs, and it won't record the SuperSource layout. So that's where this little trick comes in. If you take a short little HDMI cable, plug it into the ATEM Mini's output 2, into the ATEM input 8, for example, then you can get the SuperSource in one of those inputs. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And now in the ATEM software control, go to the outputs menu, choose output 2, and then choose SuperSource. And now if you look, you'll see that in input 8, you now see the SuperSource layout. And now because it's coming in over HDMI, it actually will get recorded when you use the record feature. So the last step is to go to the output tab, go down to the record section, and then make sure this ISO record all inputs is checked. And that will actually record all 8 tracks onto the hard drive. Now, in this case, we actually only care about input 8, and that's the only one we're going to use later, but we can't record only that one. It will record all of them. We'll just throw out the other ones when we're done. So when you're ready to start your Zoom meeting, make sure you've got input 1 chosen on the ATEM, turn on your audio, plug in your computer, you can see that the slides show up in the multi-view. Join your Zoom meeting like normal, and people will see just the camera. And then when you hit ISO record, it's now recording your camera, your slides, and the SuperSource layout. So at the end of your meeting, when you're done recording, you just hit stop, grab the hard drive, and if you take a look at the files that have been recorded, go ahead and open up the video ISO files folder, and again, you can see all the angles were recorded. Here's the camera, here's the presentation. The rest of them are going to be black. We don't care about them. All we care about is input 8, which has the SuperSource layout. Of course, this will work with any online meeting software, not just Zoom. Any online meeting software that lets you join with a webcam and screen share will work the same. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, that's it for this video. I hope this video has been helpful and given you a new way to use your ATEM Mini Extreme in your meeting. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.